Alex. I'm Andy O'Brien. It's a pleasure to meet you. Maggie, thanks for doing this. I'm super
Yeah,
excited that you guys have joined in and are going to be part of our series.
we are too.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good idea.
One of the biggest reasons that we started doing this is that we know that in Texas in the next, well, we started this 7 months ago. We know there's going to be a million plus bankruptcies. It's
Mhm.
documented. We know it. We're already starting to see those. But one of the biggest reasons that we're doing this is to get people's name out there, because if one business owner, wherever they're at, reads this, listens to it, understands it, and they can take advice from you and it
Mhm.
helps them turn their business or pivot their business, then that's the thing that is most important, that we help business owners all over the country do this better.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Especially with the pandemic thing going on. I don't know. It feels like it brought a lot of people in the community together to try and support each other. When the pandemic quarantine first hit, I put on some speaking things with a bunch of other people in Austin, a lot of other Austin entrepreneurs, just trying to get their names out there, right? And trying to get some of that lacking South by Southwest visibility back into the
Hmm.
community. And it was like kind of cool to see all of these people trying to come together. So it's
And
cool
I
that you're
think,
doing this.
thank you. And they still are. That's the purpose, whether it's the SBDC, the SBA, whether it's Action Coach, whether it's your law firm. The idea is we know in society that um, the Americas was built on the backs of entrepreneurs like yourself, myself, and all of these entrepreneurs. Yes, Walmart's and Exxon and all of these large companies came from one person's idea, but we know that's how they start. And we can't,
Mhm.
as difficult as this time is on some business owners, we just have to continue to push forward. And, you know, for me, I've already burned the boats. I don't know about you guys. There's no surrender, no retreat. We're full fledged into this.
Yeah. That point came for me a long time ago. Actually, before I went to law school, I knew I wanted to start my own firm. And then I got to law school and I was telling my classmates and professors about this, and everyone was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm sure." So everyone knew, and I had that, that community pressure to follow through on what I had been telling people. So
Oh, I
it's
love that
been,
accountability.
yeah, both a good thing and a scary thing.
Exactly. Well, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about your business. Tell us your name, where you're located, and how long you've been in business.
Sure. So we're Shahrestani Law. I'm Alex Shahrestani. This is Maggie Shahrestani. There is a relation. We're married. Um, yeah. So I started the practice a couple of years ago. As I said, it's been like my basically lifetime goal of like having my own practice. Um, and Maggie joined last year. We work with small businesses and startups, entrepreneurs in general. I particularly like working with tech issues. So like software as a service. I like privacy, cybersecurity, all of that. Maggie has been more of the construction side of things because prior to joining the firm, she was in house for a real estate developer, and so we've been figuring out ways to like bring our different interests together into the firm, and I think we're figuring it out.
Love it. Love it. Anything to add there, Maggie?
Yeah, just I really like working with subcontractors. So I do a lot of work with like small family-owned subcontractors, particularly in payment disputes with like bigger developers. Which I'm sort of passionate about, having worked at a big developer and seeing from the inside like how deprioritized those guys really get. Like the smaller you are, the less attention you get. So I really like advocating for those businesses in particular.
Mhm.
And
Excellent.
actually, I've been working with a lot of women-owned businesses as well, although that wasn't necessarily the plan, or I'm not limiting myself to that, but I do enjoy that a lot.
Excellent. So when you look at that, I talk about it in target market. So you guys just started to touch on that a little bit, but let's really dive down into, if you had to say this, what is your best customer, right? Who is like, and I don't mean revenue or they pay you lots of money. I mean, like they walk in the door and you light up, but who would you say is your best customer?
I so I have the hardest time with this question. I've been working on it ever since I started the firm, and it feels like it's a moving target, honestly. I think it's probably a little bit because of experience and stuff, and then also like a fear to commit to like a specific target customer. But the working model I've got right now is probably someone in their late 20s to late 40s. They're probably goal driven. They're self-motivated. They take initiative. They might have a family. If they don't, it's probably on the horizon for them. They're into tech, whether or not their business is tech related. I feel like I connect better with the people who are on the techie side of things. And my goal is really to work with, like, this is not quite the same thing, but small companies that are probably knocking on the door of needing to hire, quite ready for that yet. Which is like a little different than like the individual who I'm looking at. But that's part of the vision as well.
Excellent, excellent. Maggie, for you?
Yeah, for me, it's still, still trying to figure it out. I've been kind of doing the, not solo firm, but on our own kind of firm for less than a year. So very much still trying to tweak it. But I would say that both Alex and I really enjoy working with people who kind of are go-getters, like take initiative. And that's a lot of entrepreneurs anyway. So the fact that we work with a lot of startups and, self-started companies helps us find those clients. But other than that, I'm definitely still trying to narrow in on a target market.
Well, excellent. And, I think, would you agree or disagree that I call it the 5 years of COVID. It seems like we've been in it forever.
Yeah.
But would you guys say that, would you agree or disagree that it has changed the target markets for each customer, meaning we have to expand, right? We have to look at other avenues of resources. Would you guys agree to that?
I think that's true. I think there's an element of stability that we've been able to enjoy in our customer base. Prior to COVID, we were mostly remote anyway. So this is like part of the ideal customer thing, is that I found that people who really wanted to meet in person for everything were not part of my ideal customer vision. And so that has helped, but definitely, we got to find ways to replace those in-person networking meetings, those coffees, those lunches, like all of that stuff, those little things that are really important to a business. You got to find a way to replace.
And
excellent.
We've also been looking at, where are there kind of gaps in the market, and where might there be more clients moving forward. So Alex has been training to do bankruptcy, which is not a practice that we've had in the past. I'm looking at like learning tax issues. So we're also trying to like expand kind of horizontally in terms of like our offerings. So
excellent.
So that's like another way that we're trying to adapt.
Oh, I love it. That's part of it. Is I'm really glad that I didn't hear anybody that can fog a mirror or has a heartbeat. That's always bad for business, right? So let's talk about COVID. What has been the greatest impact on your business these past 8 to 9 months?
I think initially, so when it first kind of hit, like in the March timeframe, when everything kind of shut down, the biggest impact was just that business slowed way down. Like it was, there was just basically a cliff. And Alex really had a bunch of big contracts lined up, which was right around the time that I joined the firm. And so we had to kind of roll with the punches for a couple of months there. And then thankfully we've still seen growth over the last year, but it's been a bit slower than we kind of expected. So we were talking about this before the interview, and Alex was saying like he feels like it just set us back a year. Like we're kind of in the area where we expected to, we were before, and hopefully this coming year we'll kind of pick up from where we left off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so really just slowing things down.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate that honesty on that, and I think you're where a lot of us are. And I say us because we all get looped into that. We're business people. So you talked about switching, I don't want to call verticals, but you talked about adding bankruptcy. You talked about adding other things. What have there been any other actions you had to take in your business, and how did that work out?
Yeah. So I've been, like I said, looking to replace those coffees and lunches, which aren't just like networking opportunities, but I feel like they're kind of like a break in the day where I get to not feel like I'm in business mode, even though I'm doing business, right? Like even though I'm
Right.
generating referrals or like meeting with a potential client or, mentoring somebody, all of that stuff is like an important part of the business to me. And so finding a way to replace that has been the biggest challenge. And so lately I've been trying something totally new and different. I've been doing live streams of video games while I chat about the law. And like sometimes it's with friends, sometimes it's just by myself. And it's like a way to like replace sort of that break in the day feeling while still continuing to do work. And so we'll see where that takes us, but I enjoy it at least, right? Like I feel like it's like a little bit refreshing. It's like a motivator for me.
Oh, love it. What about you, Maggie? Anything
Yeah.
there? Are you doing the video games too?
No, I'm I keep trying to like them more. I'm not really a gamer. I'm actually not really much of a social media person either. I think I mentioned this
You did.
last week, Andy. So it's been kind of a challenge for me to figure out how to make connections online and kind of get involved in networking online. So I'm trying to do the LinkedIn thing more. But yeah, it's still an uphill battle for me, definitely, to figure out how to replace those things like coffees and in-person networking events.
Well, you've been
Uh,
talking about doing the statewide sort of seminars and stuff, which is like
Yeah,
another way to
that's true.
interact.
So that's one thing that we want to do a bit more of, is like, I was thinking about the fact that because everything is online, our historically, in our short history, we've been very focused, like hyper focused on Austin and like the surrounding areas. But there's a lot that we can do remotely for customers in other parts of Texas or clients in other parts of Texas. And one of the things I keep coming across again and again with like these smaller businesses that I'm working with, because they're tightening their belts, they're not really hiring legal services as often as maybe is the best practice. They often don't know certain rights that they have under statutes and other laws. And so I'm trying to put together kind of some free like Zoom seminars that just kind of lay out the basics, especially in the construction industry, for smaller subcontractors to help them get paid. Because I hate
Excellent.
getting the call where like they've missed a deadline, right? Where I'm
Oh,
like, oh, I
right,
could have
right.
helped you. I mean, now I still can, but you have less leverage than you would have had. So that's one thing I really want to do, is try to put together some more educational material, essentially.
Well, oh, I love to hear that. Maybe on another call we can actually talk more through that because content is king today, right? So we'll run into that. All right. So this is where Maggie has a leg up, and I hope you shared with him. I don't try. I'm asking these questions because I want people to dig deep, right? So it's
Mhm.
about planning. There's the three F's: flight and fear, right? But the other one in the middle is fight, right? Or flight and freeze. So tell me this: what are your goals for 2021, and do you have a written plan?
Yeah, so we do have some goals written down for what we're planning on doing this year. It's a mix of longer term macro goals and then micro goals that are steps on the way there. So we want to start taking on more litigation clients. Typically, we've done mostly transactional stuff with some litigation peppered in. Um, and where transactional work is basically, doing paperwork for people, trying to help them avoid the disputes and that sort of thing. But we want to try and take on more litigation clients at a more micro level. I want to get one cybersecurity client by the end of the month. And Maggie wants to get one construction client by the end of the month. And that's because those are areas that we particularly enjoy working in. And so we want to make sure we're intentional about spending the time developing that area.
Excellent, excellent. I love to hear that. Okay, so as I talked about earlier, so tell me this, and this is the question that I ask every business owner. Well, I actually ask all of these questions over and over. But tell me, what do you see is your biggest challenge moving through 2021?
I think well, we were talking about this before, to be honest. I think it's like motivation slash fear. You know, like I think it's like easy to have these like ideas and goals, but kind of avoid working on them because the stakes feel so high. And you instead work on like, you know, a task for the day that maybe needs to be done, but isn't as big and isn't as like daunting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like our goals are pretty reasonable and achievable, but it's more about like staying focused and motivated to work on them and chip away at them on a day by day basis.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And again, it's 1% changes. 1% changes every day give you the big results. It's so interesting. And it goes to that next question. Have you had a business strategy session or a pivot strategy session with any type of a coach or mentor throughout this COVID period?
Not quite. So when I first graduated, I joined an incubator program for starting attorneys, right? So starting attorneys like licensed less than 5 years and also starting their own firms.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID hit at the very tail end of my cohort. So we had some discussions about it, but obviously at the time we didn't know how long the quarantine was going to be. We didn't know what all those impacts would be. But we started discussing basically, what this means for the practice. But since then, no, nothing like
Okay.
targeted, nothing too deep.
Okay, well, maybe at another time we can have that discussion. But
Yeah.
so you guys have been in practice for how long right now?
So I started in November of 2018.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so it is said smart people learn from their mistakes and wise people learn from the mistakes of others. What mistakes have you made along the way, and how can other entrepreneurs, business owners learn from that mistake?
Well, first of all, she never makes mistakes.
Not true.
I love it. We can talk disc another day. Let me get so what you did is the boss's boss. Let her answer first, okay?
Well, I think for me, pricing is difficult, and I tend to undervalue my services. So I'll be talking with a client, and part of it is out of a desire to help, right? And I'm like, I just want to like help you, and I know it's not fun to pay an attorney. So I tend to feel a lot of pressure, especially if it's like in the moment on a phone call, to quote a price that I know is like significantly less than what the services are worth. And it's something I know Alex has encountered too. And so what I'll often do at this point, because he's much better, I mean, with a little bit more experience, he's better at resisting that urge, right, to deflate your prices. And so what I'll often do is like a gut check with him before I quote the customer or the client, because I've got, like, I feel like sometimes I've actually just kind of given legal services away.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was probably my biggest mistake is so I've been very motivated, even like during law school, about access to justice issues. So for example, you might think that there's like too many attorneys in the world, but for every 10,000 people with a legal problem, there's one attorney in the state of Texas. So clearly there's like a mismatch between supply and demand. And so I was like trying to meet people at a lower price point to try and give quality services to people, trying to do like more of a high volume sort of approach. And I found that every person who would call me would try and haggle with me. And it was always so frustrating because I always knew I'm already the cheapest guy in town and I'm going to be a high quality attorney for you. I'm not going to pay no attention to your case. And that was like a long lesson to learn. I think there was an element of, not wanting to charge a lot of money because it feels weird. It's like hard to ask for the money, like when you're finally down to it. But it wasn't working for me. And so finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put my price at like what the average is in the area and see what happens. And I started getting more business. And I think that's partially because in an industry where the market maybe isn't super informed, the only indicator of quality is the price. So like one example I like to use is if you don't know anything about wine and you're buying a bottle of wine as a gift, you buy based on the price. And that's like the same with legal services and with other industries, I'm sure. So that was a lesson I had to learn over time.
Excellent. And if you would you allow me for 1 second to walk through like a scenario with you?
Sure.
So it's really interesting. I run across that often, not just in my own services, but other businesses. And there's one thing that I have learned over the last 30 years in business is that being the cheapest and the quality of service, people disconnect those, right? They
Mhm.
always want, and I always used to have this debate with people. So whenever somebody wants to haggle on your prices, Maggie, ask them this: do you want the full legal advice or do you want partial legal advice? What do you think their answer is going to be?
Hopefully the full legal advice.
Yeah, right, right. So, with giving you full legal advice, shouldn't I be able to charge you full prices? So,
Mm,
it is so we're bringing, and so in our heads we play on fear a lot because, oh my gosh, I need a client, oh my gosh, we need to have business. But in the
Mhm.
reality of it is, hey, you offer a quality service for a fair price. You shouldn't be asked to discount your price because you're not allowed to discount your opinion.
yeah, that makes sense. I think one thing that we run into, especially on the transactional side of legal services, is that there's not necessarily a fire that needs to be put out, right? And so I think it's easy for the client to say like, well, maybe I don't need this right now. And what we try to explain is that like dealing with it now is going to be a lot cheaper than waiting for this to turn into a big legal issue that, we can still tackle for you, but the prices are going to be even higher and the hours are going to be longer.
The
It,
most common one there is founder disputes.
Yeah.
So they never want to paper the business arrangement at the beginning, and it inevitably there is a dispute, and the company crumbles if they don't have something together, and it's like kind of sad when it
Because they'll never fight.
happens. Yeah.
oh, just like husbands and wives, right?
Mm. Yeah,
So, and
it's
I
like
and I
as
say that. Go
it's like
ahead. Sorry.
it's like as serious of a relationship, right? Like if the
Oh,
business is
or
successful, you're going
worse.
to know this person for life, and work with them for life. But people don't approach it as seriously as marriage.
Exactly. And I have, I tell all of my clients you need three A's and a B. You need an accountant, you need an attorney, you need an action coach, you need a banker.
Mm,
Because it's attorneys and accountants and coaches, nobody hires us because they want to. They
yeah.
hire us because they need a better team, they need more time, and they need more money. That's the
Hmm.
reality of it. So I applaud you guys for that. And I have those same beliefs because it's better on the front side to have clarity than have drama.
Yeah, I
All
agree.
right. So as we're wrapping up, is there anything you'd like to add of your services that people don't know as they're watching this?
Yeah, so we've been playing with the idea of also adjusting our prices, right? And like the way we do things. So we've traditionally offered free consultations for 15 minutes, but we're looking to start charging for those. Um, but I guess if someone sees this interview and decides that they want to hire us, like we would be happy to give them the free 15-minute consultation through the end of the year.
Yeah. And then
Love
in
it.
terms of services provided, we basically consider ourselves outside general counsel in a way. So any contractual matter, employment matter, if you're starting a company, if there's a sort of a brewing dispute that you're not sure if it's going to turn into a big legal hassle, we can kind of help with all of those things.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So for you guys, we know there's been a ton of shenanigans, and I joked at the 5 years of COVID, but tell everybody here what's most inspiring to you guys today.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I read a quote the other day, or I'm reading this book. I'm reading a lot of inspirational material to stay motivated. But the guy was saying that you should eliminate the word try from your vocabulary. And at first I was like, what? And then I realized like I do that all the time. Like if I'm about to do something, I'll be like, well, I'll try and do it. We'll see what happens. And there's nothing particularly wrong with that, but like what he was pointing out is that it means you're not as committed to the outcome as maybe you should be. And it's like a way to avoid disappointment, probably on some deeper
I,
level. But that's something I really want to try to start doing. Is just saying, I will do this. Like I'm doing it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
that's what I've been thinking
Oh,
about lately.
oh, I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much, Alex. For you.
Yeah, for me, I've found that I'm most motivated when I have multiple plates spinning. I thought that running my own firm, like out of school, would be enough of that for me, but it hasn't been. So lately, I've started taking on more outside projects, and that's been really motivating for me. Like, it it feels good to think that like I'm contributing something other than just like doing work and doing a job. And it's like cool to think about how the world will be like slightly different. Yeah, so outside projects make me feel like I'm contributing something, and that it's cool to think about how the world will change a little bit once the project is complete. So that's been something that's been helping me stay motivated.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, that is the end of my questions for this recorded part of it. I can't thank you enough. We're going to